This week on MCrider, we'll look at some video footage sent in from an MCrider member, John, in St. Petersburg, Florida. He had a close call recently, and he originally shared this video on the forums. I reached out to John, and he agreed to share the video publicly here on YouTube so that we can all learn from his experience out on the street. But before we get into John's video, let's run our final ad campaign, for this go-around anyway, for Lemon Rock Bike Tours. And if you're stuck inside like me right now, you might be looking for some cool places to ride or wish you were riding. So use the link provided and check out their website. See all the amazing rides that they've got available. I hope to ride with Lemon Rock next year, and I hope to have some of you along for that ride. So stay tuned to MCrider for future details on that ride with Lemon Rock Bike Tours. What inspired you to ride a motorcycle? Why did you get your first motorcycle? Well, if you're like most people, you got a motorcycle because you wanted an adventure. We talk a lot about road skills and road strategy on MCrider. The reason we develop those skills is not just for safety, it's also because of where those skills can take us and the people we can meet along the way. Lemon Rock Bike Tours offers full-service motorcycle tours in Ireland and Scotland. They have a tour scheduled July 12th through July 27th called Lands of the Celts. On this tour, you'll see some of the most beautiful sights, ride some of the most technical roads, and explore some of the best hidden gems that Ireland and Scotland have to offer. If you're looking for an adventure, there's no better place to put your skills to use than with Lemon Rock Bike Tours. Leave the planning to them and let Lemon Rock show you some of the best roads in Ireland and Scotland. Go to mcrider.com/lemonrock and book their Land of the Celts tour and give yourself that adventure. It's why we ride, and it's why nothing compares to riding a motorcycle on some of the most beautiful roads in the world. I'm looking to go for a ride with them next year, and then I'll be able to say, I'll see you on the road in Ireland. So I got this footage from one of our forum members, John, and he agreed to share the footage on MCrider. So let's take a look at what John sent in, and then we'll dissect it and we'll see what we can learn from this. So let's head over to the computer. I'll pull up the video and we'll see what we can learn from the footage that John sent in. I thought it'd be beneficial if we watch the complete video, and then we'll go back and we'll look at some pros and cons and some things up for debate. So let's watch the whole video and then we'll come back and break it down. All right, John, so thanks for sending that in, and let's look at some pros and cons from the footage and some issues that are up for debate in watching this video. So let me back up. We'll go to about right here. And notice what John does. Let's look at some pros first. Notice what John does as he's approaching this intersection. All right, so you hear what he's doing there? He's rolling off the throttle. That means that we've got a rider who is aware that intersections can be bad, and he's slowing down and using caution at intersections. And I think his awareness about intersections is getting ready to pay off for him. And if we fast forward this just a little bit, right here, see if you notice something. So again, there was a slight roll off the throttle, and I'm guessing that he is looking right here and he's seeing this bicycle, and he's using caution with that bicycle possibly pulling out in his lane as well. So this tells me that we've got an alert rider who's looking up the road, and he's being proactive about what's happening around him. And let me go back here and show you one other thing that I picked up on right there. All right, so we've got a rider who's wearing at least a high-vis helmet. He's got a bright yellow helmet on, so being seen on the road should not be an issue. So we've got a proactive rider who is trying to take care of business and be safe out on the road. And let's go up to that crosswalk section. So as he's approaching the near incident, we'll start playing it from about right here. All right, so again, John's coming into this area. We've got cars turning. We've got an intersection. We got another one right up there, and again, you can hear him roll off the throttle. So again, our rider's being proactive here. All right, so right there is, I think, the first time that John's reaction can bring up some debate about how the situation was handled, and John's first reaction was to use the horn. Now, there is a time and a place for the horn, and this incident was a judgment call, in my opinion, on whether the horn or the brakes were the correct first response. So if John used the horn there was a chance that this truck would hear him and that it wouldn't pull out into the intersection, and at the same time that would reduce his chance of being rear-ended. But if he'd gone to the brakes right away, he would have eliminated the chance of this collision altogether. So I lean towards using the brakes first and audible warning second. But again, it's a judgment call in situations like this because you may be able to keep that truck from pulling out in front of you. But while we're on the issue of audible warnings, I see very little value in rev bombing cars like I see a lot of YouTubers do, going to the throttle aggressively to try to alert drivers around you. Very little value in that. Use the horn, use the brakes. Leave the rev bombing for the next time you go to a bike night. I see very little value in doing that out on the street. The second con that I see is the use of the horn lengthened his stopping distance. In fact, it was about 1.5 seconds after the horn before John applied the brakes. So right here is about the frame where he goes to the horn, and he's going about 40 miles per hour. And then there is when he starts using the brakes, a little bit before that. So it was about 1.5 seconds from the time he initially honked the horn until he got to the brakes. And at 40 miles per hour, that means John traveled an additional 52 feet before applying the brakes. So it probably would have meant the difference of if he had started braking here when he initially went to the horn, he probably would have gotten the motorcycle to a stop somewhere in here and would have avoided the possibility of this crash altogether. But at the same time, he would need to be aware of what was happening behind him too. And the final thing that I see that John should incorporate into his braking practice is getting the motorcycle down into first gear during the stop. Now, this is something that every rider needs to eventually incorporate into their emergency braking, and it takes some practice to do so. And it will only be there for you out on the street if you're practicing this while you're in a parking lot. So once you've got emergency braking down and you can stop safely and without locking the brakes up, then you need to practice doing so from second or third gear and getting the motorcycle down into first gear as you perform the stop. So if we listen as John's applying the brakes, you won't hear him downshift. Then it sounds like, I'm guessing he was in third gear, because once he gets up here to a stop, you can hear him doing something, and I'm thinking he's probably downshifting there. But then the dead giveaway is he's got to downshift again before he pulls off. So let's listen to that. So right there, I think he's trying to get it down into first gear. The bike is still in second. He pulls off. He's got to get it back down into first, and then he's ready to go. So every time I talk about getting the bike into first gear in an emergency stop, some of you are going to say that the gear doesn't matter, that the only important thing is getting the motorcycle to a stop. And while I do agree that stopping is the primary thing here, being in first gear is a very nice bonus, because if he had gotten the motorcycle to a stop here and a car behind him was not able to stop, he was a sitting duck. There was nothing he could do to get out of the way at that point. So every time those wheels stop turning, whether it's pulling up to a stop sign, stop light, or in this situation, an emergency stop, you want that motorcycle in first gear. And that brings up another important topic as well of checking your mirrors, because in order to get the bike to a stop, you got to be aware of what's going on behind you. So as a rider, as he's riding down the road, in this area, you want to be checking your mirrors every, couple of seconds or so, and at least every time you speed up or slow down. You want to take a quick glance at the mirrors and know what's happening behind you, because only by knowing what's going on behind you will we be prepared if we have to stop like this to get out of the way. So why did this close call happen in the first place? Well, let's go back to right here. And I think this frame probably tells the picture. Right here, John's in the blind spot of this driver in the white car. And at best, we're going to get a quick glance up the road from other drivers before they pull out. And I bet our driver looked but didn't see John because he was in this blind spot right here. So he's blinded from the vehicle that's going to eventually pull out in front of him. Now, legally, our driver was at fault. So the driver of the truck here would have been at fault in this situation, but as riders, we're the ones who are always going to pay the price. And John may have been aware that that truck was pulling out. In fact, I think he probably was, just by the fact that he gets on the horn so quickly tells me that he was paying attention to that driver of the vehicle. And that's always a good thing when we're going down the road. When you realize you're in situations like this and that you're blind to this driver, that you need to be aware of what's going on there. And even this driver on the other side of the road, right there, you're in a blind spot to this driver because of the telephone pole. So we're constantly in and out of these blind spots going down the road, and that's where we need to play that what-if game. What if this driver can't see me? What am I going to do? We ride up a little bit further. Okay, now I'm in the blind spot of this guy. If he doesn't see me, what am I going to do? In this instance, John used the horn, and he got our driver to come to a stop. It's debatable on whether the horn was the correct reaction at that point, or whether he should have probably gone to the brakes. I think my first reaction would have been to go to the brakes first. But nonetheless, John did well, and he avoided a bad situation. And his proactiveness and being aware of his surroundings played a huge role in him being able to avoid a crash on this day. So some other things that we want to look at. Times like this, we really need to keep our cool. It looks like John did, but only he knows this for sure. So when he comes to a stop up here, you can hear him getting the bike in gear and getting ready to take off again. And that's the time where you're probably really steaming and you're wanting to look at this driver, and you see it on YouTube all the time, riders yelling at other vehicle drivers. But it's a time we need to keep our cool. Now, I've seen riders taking the final skill eval on their motorcycle license, and they mess up on one exercise early. They get mad at themselves about it, and this leads to them messing up the next exercise, and it snowballs for the rider. And sometimes it means a decent rider doesn't pass the skill eval because they've let one exercise get in their head and they're angry from it and they're unable to recover. And likewise on the street, we need to get over whatever incidents occur and move on. If we ride angry, we can let the close call we had at one intersection affect the next. And if we've got a knucklehead at the next intersection, we may not be mentally prepared to deal with it. So the time to perform that after-action review of a close call is after we get off the motorcycle and end the ride for the day. So I want to congratulate John for job well done here, for alerting this truck that he was coming down the road and doing a good job of getting the motorcycle to a stop without locking the tires up and causing a crash when there didn't need to be one, because he states he had been practicing emergency braking and he was able to get the motorcycle to a stop without crashing or causing the incident to be worse than it actually was. So thanks, John, for sending this video in. I'd like to hear from you guys and what you think about this situation. Would you have gone to the brakes first, or were the horn the appropriate reaction? Have you had close calls similar to this, and what did you do in those situations? We'll also be discussing this on the forums, so if you're not currently a member, you can go to MCrider.com/support, and you can become a member and get access to the field guide and the forums, where we talk about this topic and a whole lot of other riding topics to help you become a better rider. Till next week, guys, it's Kevin with MCrider, and I'll see you on the road. There are multiple ways to support the channel. You can become a member on YouTube at MCrider.com/member, or support the channel through Patreon at MCrider.com/support. Either way, you'll get full access to the forum and the field guides, which will further the training that we release here on a weekly basis.